The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everybody. This is the Select Board meeting of Tuesday, January 6, 2021. And we can start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Anita, would you like to lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Just my usual reminders to everybody. This is being recorded. Any comments or questions that we receive become part of the public record. And if you have a question or a comment, if you would use the question box to write your question or comment to us, because that's the easiest way for us to see it, would appreciate it. I know there's a hand raising icon also for folks to use. And while you can use that, we encourage you to also use the question box, because sometimes we inadvertently miss the hands. All right, starting with open forum. Does anybody from the board have anything for open forum? Okay, I don't have anything for open forum tonight either. So moving right along to our, is this a public hearing, Jody?
No, clerk says no.
Thank you, clerk. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Our 705 item is a request for a change of director and treasurer on a Mass General Law 138, Section 12, all alcohol club license for the Franco-American Club. And who is this? Jeff Hillman, and or Denise Crocker, is one of you out there?
I do not see either of them online right now.
Okay. Jody?
Patty can speak to this if you want.
Well, that would be lovely.
Just a minute. Let me just unmute her.
Good evening. How's everybody tonight?
Good. How are you, Patty?
Good evening, Patty.
Hello. The Franco, this is a typical change of directors. They typically do this every year when they elect new officers to their board of directors. The ABCC requires that they do the proper change, because actually the board of directors is also the holder of the liquor license. Andy handled this, and the paperwork is in order, and I believe it should be fine.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board? So seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Anita?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Aye. Okay, thank you. And now our next item is a presentation from the Healthy Westford Committee of their project Core Westford Walkway. And Bill Harmon, Don Galia, if I mispronounced your name, I apologize, and Chris Barrett are going to give us a presentation. So Eric, if you can unmute them and we can hear from them, that would be great.
All
Hello,
right.
can you hear me? This is Bill Harmon.
Hi, Bill.
Oh, good evening. I'm a member of the Healthy Westford Committee, and one of the projects that we work on is walking and the health benefits of walking. And of course, we know there's a lot of people walking, particularly these days. So we're looking at the patterns of where they're walking, and we are considering possible ways we could help or improve conditions. Our committee, Healthy Westford, coordinates with the Pedestrian Safety Committee. And one of the example of that is the, well, I'll give you one example, which is planning future sidewalks. You know, they're expensive, but we worked together on that project. And you're probably particularly familiar with Chris Barrett, who's the chairman of the Pedestrian Safety Committee. Tonight, the presentation from Healthy Westford, actually it's from the three of us together, is by Don Gallia. He's a walker of amazing distances, but he knows quite a bit about walking, and particularly around in Westford. So if you're ready, Don, are you there? I think you'll be with us in a second.
There I am. I didn't realize I had to unmute myself. So yes, I'm ready.
Good.
So the Core Westford Walkway will, when it's completed, hopefully will be completed, will extend through the entire length of Westford from the Tingsboro border on the north to the Acton border on the south, as you can see in this picture, with the pink line showing the walkway. Most of it already exists or is already planned. The planned sections are the Oak Hill Road sidewalk, the Carlisle Road sidewalk, and the Boston Road sidewalk. Much of the rest of it already exists, except for 3 gaps. One gap is from the end of the existing sidewalk on Plain Road at Nutting Road down to the intersection with Depot Street. And this section has been actually on the Pedestrian Safety Committee priority list. Actually, I think it's at the top of the priority list. It's been on that list for a while. And that's one of the things we want to talk to you about later. The second gap goes from that intersection down to, or up to the Abbott School. And the third gap is from Carlisle Road over to Vose Road. And those will be future projects, hopefully. Can we go to the slideshow and go to the third slide, I think?
Mm-hmm.
So this shows the it's the Core Westford Walkway will be great. It'll cover the entire town. It'll link together neighborhoods and link to the major destinations like the center of town, a lot of the conservation areas. But the real value of it is all of the other connections that we'll get with it. It was designed to be kind of the backbone or core of a walkway network. And so the orange lines on here show how it would intersect together with the Core Westford Walkway. All of these orange lines are already existing walkways. And the walkways that we're talking about, some are sidewalks, some are trails, and some are relatively lightly traveled streets. If we go to the next slide. So the objective here is to increase, actually go down up a little bit, is to obviously increase our walkability. But one of the things that we'll get out of having the Core Westford Walkway being a highlighted goal or objective for the town is it'll allow us to talk about and highlight and take credit for a lot of the improvements in walkability that we've already done, like the Plain Road sidewalk, and some of the ones that are coming, like the Carlisle Road sidewalk, Oak Hill, and then Boston Road. And as we go further along, we hope to develop a map, improve on this map, to show folks in the town how to walk from place to place safely and throughout the town, and facilitate planning. We will then be able to see, okay, here's an area where we don't have some connections, we don't have links, where walking could be improved, and then we can then focus on and work on those connections. And actually, while I'm talking, I'll point out there is one that is coming up later on your agenda, which is 22 Griffin Road, which now has a connection, or has historically had a connection between Griffin Road and Old Low Road. There's an old road through the woods there, a historic road, that allows you to walk from Griffin to Old Low Road. And I think there's development, I assume something, I'm not exactly sure what's going to be going on there, but hopefully whatever happens, we will still be able to maintain that connection between those two roads, because that's the kind of connection that we'd like to have. And and that's the kind of, hopefully having a map, having a the network evolving will provide inspiration for both the town and for individual property owners to make connections between their neighborhoods. So then the next slide, which is what we mostly came here for, was to ask for your support for our existing request for design funds that's been previously submitted to capital planning. As I said, this is for the Plain Road Gate 1 section between Nutting Road and the Depot Street connection that will allow people from Nabnasset and all along Plain Road to walk to Grassy Pond, East Boston Camps, and to the farm stands near the train tracks. So, and that's actually one of the things that we heard the most often a few years ago when we did a survey of folks where they would like to walk in town. That area, that along that section, was one of the most predominant things that was requested. And for a while, we were considering doing a wheelchair accessible trail through Grassy Pond as part of this walkway. But after considering and evaluating a little further, we've decided that it's probably better to do that at another place in town and to focus on the sidewalk for this section. So that's it for the presentation, unless Bill or Chris have other things they want to add in.
Bill or Chris, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, I think as far as I'm concerned, that covers the points that I wanted to cover.
Okay. All right. Mark. Wait a minute. Hang on 1 minute, Mark. Chris Barrett, do you have anything you want to add? I'm sorry.
Sure. Thank you very much. I think Don really did a great job of explaining the core Westford walkway. One point of clarification on the ask before you this evening. As Don pointed out, that this ask is for the phase 1 of 2 phases to bridge the gap between where the Plain Road sidewalk currently ends and getting us down to the bridge over at Depot there. So one of the things that is critical as to try and move this concept forward is building those missing sections, as Don talked about. And this is a great first step in doing that. We understand that budgets are tight this year. I do want to point out that this is an $80,000 ask. We hope that we can fund that from our capital budget. We could potentially supplement that with funds from our sidewalk gift account, which we currently have $81,000 in that account. So there is some money there to help offset the capital outlay. And having projects like this particular one in the works, even if it's just the design phase, it really puts us in a good position for grants. And a great example of this is the grant that we received this past year and allowed us to complete a shovel-ready project that we had in design phase for the Abbott School area. So, I hope that we can continue to keep some of these projects in the pipeline so that we can take advantage of those grant opportunities. The Complete Streets, which we received a grant from back in 2016, This would be another project which we could submit to that program and would be, I think, really favorably received, as it provides connectivity to a school as well as a recreation resource. And it's not going to be particularly costly to, I think, build that first phase. So if we can get that design done, we could potentially submit to Complete Streets in the future and see if we can get some money to get it constructed.
Okay, thank you. Mark, and then Scott.
Yeah, so Jody, I think it would be worthwhile sharing with everyone the capital budget process that we've just gone through. I just want to remind people it is an extremely difficult year for capital projects. And I think it was, Jody, if you can share, since I missed a good portion of the fall meetings, where this sat on the capital planning committee's list of priorities. And just that.
Go ahead, Jody.
Sorry, I pushed the wrong button. You all disappeared. But so Capital has been meeting, and we did meet again, I think, a week ago. And there was a lot of discussion about the sidewalks. I believe this is one of them, and Robinson Road, which is something that the select board heard a couple of times. Capital's heard a couple of times. So we have not made a recommendation as a committee. I did send some minutes to our chair last week to see how she wanted me to proceed. I feel a little bit concerned because with Robinson Road, we took it off the annual warrant last spring. And I remember telling the residents it would not delay the project. And now we're looking at perhaps not funding it. So these are things we need to talk about. I think I'll touch on them briefly at the February 9th budget meeting. But Mark is absolutely right. Funds are very tight and we always fund safety first. But so it's not been decided or recommended, but I guess I would want to know from Healthy Westford and pedestrian safety, does this rank above the Robinson Road sidewalk in your priorities?
I think Don and Chris, would you answer that?
Sure. Yes. Pedestrian Safety Committee has ranked the Plain Road extension as its top priority for the foreseeable future, with Robinson Road a close second behind it.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Mark. Mark?
You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. The thing that we haven't talked about yet in capital planning is part of that Plain Road sidewalk that went in. We made accommodations, I believe, to clear the snow off of that sidewalk. So one of the comments I get often as we continue to look at sidewalks is the town planning on clearing any new sidewalks that get added? If the answer is that these folks want to have it cleared, I think it brings up a whole nother set of discussions about the cost to clear sidewalks that we're putting in town. And if you recall, several years ago, we said it was going to be a trial. We've never reevaluated the trial aspects of it and what the true cost is and whether we want to do that going forward. So I think, not for tonight, but something to discuss as we continue to go forward in the budget process is that whole set of decisions on whether the town is going to plow sidewalks that it puts in or not, because there's no way that the town can continue to afford plowing in its operating expense base, certainly not in the next 3 years for sure. Anyway, so just some food for thought.
Scott, and then Anita.
Yeah, so thanks for for your time tonight, and part of the leading question, but as part of our settlement agreement with Newport, we've got asphalt to be used for sidewalks, and I guess one of my priors is that that money be invested in the part of town that is most impacted by Newport. That would include NAP. So my understanding would be this project, if it was designed, be a recipient for that asphalt. Would that be correct, Chris?
I believe so. I mean, I would leave that determination up to engineering, but the past conversations we've had with them has indicated that once we get through the first use of those materials in the Acton sidewalk project that's still pending, Acton Road sidewalk project, that they intend to use it on all foreseeable projects going forward that include sidewalks. So I hope to see that, if we have this project move forward, that we could use those resources for it as well.
Anita, I know you had.
Yep, I have two questions. One is for the 80,000 estimate. Is that based off of like engineering's estimate? Like, how did you get that figure?
Yes, that comes from the engineering department, who got it from their consultants, TEC.
Okay. And my other question is, so if we were to approve this, then that skips over capital, but then if we don't approve this, then does this request go back to capital? I'm just trying to figure out sort of pathways from here.
That's a great question.
Go ahead, Jody. Jody, you can answer that.
Mark and I have lively discussions about this, but so capital was formed by me, it is appointed by me. It helps me get people organized and prioritize capital for our town. But I obviously am appointed by the select board and I report to you. So if you deem this a priority, that gives it more strength at the capital planning period. So you have supported the Robinson Road, and I honestly don't remember, I believe you've supported this one too. So I wouldn't just negate that out of the capital plan without bringing it back to you. So that's what I'm talking to the chair about, how she would like me to handle that. So, but funds are tight. Mark is correct. I will say we have cleared the sidewalks at the Abbott area and the Plain Road. We have managed that. I think if we were going to go across town and clear sidewalks, that would be a much larger conversation. But I definitely know, as someone that lives in the NAB area and lives near Plain Road, I see that sidewalk used all the time. And I support what pedestrian safety and the Healthy Westford are trying to do, because people are out there walking and I want to be safe.
Okay. Mark and then Anita.
Yeah, so my recommendation to everybody is you really can't make,
Right.
I don't think you should be making any decisions or recommendations. We should be this evening, right? You have to see the whole capital plan and then understand all of it, and then what can be afforded before you start making some trade-offs. So, that's going to start on February 9th. There's no rush to do this. I think, we've heard, why this is a good thing to do and what's being requested, but I don't think you can make it in a vacuum, right? You got to understand everything else that's out there.
I think that's true, and that was actually going to be my comment. I completely support this project. Sort of in the abstract and what it does as a walker and as somebody who actually walks, from that bridge up to the intersection of Main Street and Depot many times, and there's no sidewalk there, and it's a little hairy sometimes when you're walking there. I would love it if there were a sidewalk. So in concept, I absolutely support this, but I do think, as Mark said, before the board can sort of cast its approval and figure out what capital projects we're going to be able to, what we can be able to fund this year, I do think that we need to, go through the whole capital process as we usually do, see what projects are out there, and then also see, how our budget process unfolds over the next several months. As has been mentioned, Jody will be presenting the town budget at our February 9th meeting. That will be the opening salvo, so to speak, of the whole budget process. I know that she and Dan and Bill Olson and Ingrid from the school sides have been working very closely in coming up with and developing a budget. The schools presented theirs Monday night. As I said, the town will be presenting, Jody will be presenting the town's February 9th. So I think we have to have the whole picture before we can make any decisions. But I do want to say that as a concept, I'm absolutely in favor of this.
Could
and
I
I
just-
cut you off, so I know you had something, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just ditto. And also, I think, just knowing that this is going to be a continuing conversation, it'd be really helpful to kind of color code maybe where there are already sidewalks versus where there's like where you would like to add sidewalks, just for the bigger picture, so that I can kind of visualize like really quickly and see where the gaps are. That would be helpful for me.
That would be one of the things we'd be doing with a map going forward.
Okay, we do have a couple of
Andrea,
comments.
Andrea, I'm
sorry.
sorry to interrupt you. Could I just add something real quick? This is
Oh,
Chris.
of course, yep.
Yeah. So as far as the budget goes, I hear you all loud and clear. I am a member of the capital planning committee, so I understand the process quite well. My concern is that this project, either this project or Robinson Road, won't even make it to your budget on the 9th, right? So one of the things that I think we have to understand here is, as we've all heard, there's a lot of competing resources. It's currently on our straw man. Doesn't mean that it will stay there necessarily. So I would love to hear the board potentially put some weight behind keeping it in the budget pending future review and maybe removal based off of other projects that are there, but it needs to get there first. So if it gets cut before you even see the budget, then, it's done. So is there any way we can keep it somehow in the budget so that you can at least evaluate it against all the other projects that we bring forward to you?
Mark?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's not in the budget, right? So the budget is the budget. This is the capital committee recommendation. At the end of the day, as Jody said, it's her decision. So if she wants to, even though it's on the straw person now, it's up to her whether she leaves it there. We've only provided recommendations to her. And I think to ask the Board of Selectmen to
Select board.
Thank you. Sorry, I haven't gotten my new stationery yet. For
We're
it
working
to,
on it.
well, good use of taxpayer, buddy.
I was gonna say, but there's a budgetary constraint here, Mark, so.
Yeah, right. I think as Chris is not the right thing to do. I think, you'll hear from everybody. Well, you heard from Andrea, whether, she thinks it's a priority. I think you can hear from everybody else. But to ask them to keep it in the quote unquote budget, absent them hearing anything else, I'm not sure is the fair thing to do.
And I think also, the other thing is, while, we get the capital committee's recommendations, we also get what you don't recommend. And it is always within our purview to say to the capital committee, hey, we'd really like you to look at, this project that you aren't funding vis-a-vis something else, or find some way to fund it. So
Yep.
I think that, I think that the capital committee via Mark and Jody and whomever else from the committee is listening is, I hope, hearing that this is a project that the board is quite interested in. Let me see, Tom?
Just to echo that, I think this already is part of the process, but just to double check, I hope when we see the whole capital list, we'll also see the line and things that didn't make the recommendation list this time. Because you're right, we may say, hey, look, we'd like a better explanation of why this is here and not here. So I understand that's still coming. I think that's part of what we normally do, but I definitely would like to see those things that are just below the threshold of being selected so we can ask those questions.
Scott, you had your hand up and I
But
bypassed you.
that was my point. That every year we do this, and every year capital says, here's what made the cut, here's what didn't, and why. So it's not like this won't disappear. It'll be there for us to discuss and say, what's the trade-off? And we can always, undo that trade-off if in fact it was made, and if we think we need to.
Okay, and one last thing, and then we have some comments that I'll go to. I also, if there are folks from the Robinson Road area also watching and listening to us, and you've heard mention that Jody has forwarded me some minutes with respect to that and our discussion last year. We haven't forgotten about you. I think in this whole discussion also, need to go back and revisit that and see where we are with that as well. So I don't want folks on Robinson Road to think that, we have forgotten about you or that we're just putting you aside at this point. So we haven't. Scott?
I think as Chris mentioned that Robinson Road and Plain Road have 1 and 2, in terms of our priorities for years, because if you think about what we want to do as pedestrian safety, we want safe links between areas of town that people want to go to, and there's proven demand for that in NAB, down East Boston Camps and Grassy Pond and the farm stand. But also priority is safe walking for students to schools, and that's what we get for Robinson Road. So this is these are difficult decisions in a tight budget year. So we haven't forgot Robinson Road. It's right there, but this one may be more bang for the buck and more attainable in the near future.
Okay, so let me just go to some comments that we have received. Emily Teller writes, as you can imagine, I am thrilled to see that the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail is a part of this wonderful Connecting Healthy project for our town. Well done, gentlemen and ladies who helped. I hope the select board and any other town boards and our staff strongly support this and work for its completion. The Bruce Freeman Rail Trail has seen increased use during this past year in all seasons. She then went on to provide us with this information that rail trails cost about $2.2 million per mile now. So this is a good value for the cost for sure. Emily then, as we all know, walking and the Bruce Freeman Trail are Emily's passions. She now goes on and asks, what about requesting Community Preservation Act funding under the umbrella of recreation, also maybe some historic trails and roadways, as well as encouraging people to use open space. And one last comment from Emily, considering climate change and green progress in Westford, walking, including in winter when possible, is healthy and better than driving to get exercise. I think the town will be cleaning more sidewalks in the future. And then we have a comment from Lynn Cohen, who says correctly, at the end of the day, it's not Jody or the select board's call on what capital projects get funded, it's town meetings. And yes, that is certainly true, that at the end of the day, it's up to town meeting to decide. And I think that is, Roberta McGuire, you have your hand up. Do you have a question? Well,
okay, thank you. Yeah, I had a comment. I think this is a great idea. So I'm really excited about it. I hope that at some point they will do what they can to increase wheelchair and accessible trails as part of this. I know that the presenters talked about how they couldn't do a lot of this in phase 1 or something, that they're considering it, but maybe they, have to wait a bit. But I think that that's an emerging need throughout town, and it's something to think about. And I know that there's a money component to this, but I'd encourage you to consider it. But anyway, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. I'm a walker too, and I'm a trail walker, so I really enjoy what's happening here. So thank you.
You're welcome. Scott?
Just to tell Roberta, yeah, not only this committee, but our Commission on Disabilities, which Nita and I are on, wheelchair access for open space is a priority for that commission. So yeah, if you're not forgotten, it's a priority, just probably not the same funding cycle as this one, or funding source at least.
Okay. Okay, we have one more comment, a couple more comments from David Gutbrod of the Historic Commission. He wants to know if there is a plan for the sidewalk crossing of Stony Brook. There's a historic stone bridge that exists under the road, and wanted to call attention to this resource as well as the small passing. And there's, oh, the second comment was that he's from the Historic Commission, which I already said. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if Bill, Dan, or Chris is able to answer that question.
It's Don. Actually, I can point out that we've met with Paul Starrett at the bridge and talked about different options for crossing Stony Brook. So the engineering is already thinking about this. There are a couple of options. One of the ones we talked about was using a fiberglass bridge, which the National Park Service uses to cross canyons out west, and they're actually relatively cheap. You can get a 30-foot fiberglass bridge for $18,000. So it's within a reasonable amount of money. Of course, then you have all the construction costs and all those things too. But the actual structure itself is relatively inexpensive.
Okay, and Paul Starrett has his hand up. I assume it was to respond to that. So Paul, if you'd like to respond.
That any sidewalk that we build will be accessible. Accessible ramps, everything will be ready with it.
Okay. All right, so obviously this is a topic for continued discussion as we move forward with both capital and the budget. So we will continue the discussion. Tom?
Just want to make sure you saw there's a hand up from Carol Morse and Chris Barrett. Don't know if they just left it up from earlier, but they're hiding up there on the hand up
list. Chris just took his down, so I think that answers that question. Carol, did you have a question? I'm not hearing anything from her, so if Carol, if you do.
No, it was on mute. I don't know how it looked on your side, but it was on mute here.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, with that, we will move on to our 7:30 p.m. item, which is a joint meeting with the Energy Committee to consider changes due to including Westford Climate Action, renaming the committee, expanding the membership, and updating changes to their charge. So Mike Berlinski, who's the chair of the Energy Committee, and I know that Tom, you've also been helping with a new charge. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Mike, do you want to go first?
Mike, I was just going to say, Mike, you want to start? There you are.
Hi, thank you for having me. I did submit a memo with a summary of the discussion at Energy Committee meeting. It reflects the views of the Energy Committee members as well as town staff and residents who attended. So just to summarize briefly, we're open to some changes to the Energy Committee name, charter, which is the scope, as well as the size. There was some general consensus on some of these, but nothing too specific. So looking forward to some guidance from the select board. And thanks, Tom Clay, for your suggestion in terms of a charge, we do think that the material that you put forward is good. We do think that there are some details we'd like to keep in the existing Energy Committee charge, and so we would suggest keeping that as well. So that's all I wanted to start out with. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Comments from, actually, I know that folks from Climate Action are out there, and I don't know if they have any comments at this point or if they just want to wait and hear the discussion, but if you do, just raise your hand or send us a note. Comments from the board as to where we go, how we proceed from now, from here, what we want to do? Okay.
I don't know if you can see it, Andrea.
Okay,
Andrea might be frozen.
my entire screen is frozen.
So you've got Tom and Anita with hands up.
Okay, thank you. Tom and then Anita.
So there's some information in your packet that we went through and sort of exchanged with Mike, and I appreciate it's been a very positive discussion. So I think we're deciding what flavor of ice cream we want best here in terms of what the final view of this might be. I sort of ended my little email to you, which is in your packet, suggesting a charter. I did try to add a sentence that included some of the key issues and topics that Mike and the committee had identified. It's a little bit of a style question. I sort of feel like a charter can often suit best if it's a little bit briefer and stays at a little bit higher level and doesn't get too detailed. So, Eric, I don't know if you want to bring up the suggested charter that was in the version that I sent, but I don't know if we need to finalize this tonight, but that was my best effort in pulling together these various elements and doing my best to respect the kind of high level points that committee wanted to add. There's certainly another stylistic approach, which would be to have a lot more detail in it. And that's sort of a question of personal preference, I think. My sense was we might just be a little bit more better served longer term with something a little bit more flexible. Or sometimes a higher level can be a little bit more flexible and adapted to change as new needs come up. So Eric, you'd go down to a little bit further down. If you keep going, it says recommendation, I think, or something like that. Suggested charter. Yeah. So the last little bits here, suggested charter, suggested name, and the composition in terms of number. You know, that was sort of my, I enjoyed the dialogue a lot with everyone who's involved in this. This is sort of where I ended up. So I guess I offer that up to the committee for any other comment.
Okay. Anita?
Yep. You know, thanks to Tom and Mike and the Energy Committee and Westford Climate Action. I know that there's been a lot of work and conversations into this. I just had a question because I know the Westford Climate Action had some comments, a couple of tweaks to the proposed charter language. And I wanted to ask Mike, and I guess on behalf of the Energy Committee, if you had any, what your reactions were to their proposed edits.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yes, I can. Okay, yes, I can say that. I don't think we would oppose any of them. I think we had some other edits to what we saw from Tom originally, and we had some additional edits, but I don't think we would oppose any of the edits from Westford Climate Action.
Okay. So it seems to me, I don't particularly like engaging in trying to write a charge or wordsmith, taking, you know, different sections from what the Energy Committee has done, what Tom has proposed, what Climate Action has also modified it. So I would propose that we as a board have the opportunity to look at it and maybe Tom and I'm willing to work with you, Tom, on this, and Tom and I take all of these suggestions and put together a charge that we can then bring back to actually circulate to the Energy Committee, to Westford Climate Action, and then bring back to the board at our next meeting, and then hopefully get that done, because I don't think we can do it on the fly here, and I don't like doing things like that on the fly. So if that meets everybody's approval, I see thumbs up. Mike, is that a thumbs up or is it a question?
No, that sounds good, a question, but I'd see maybe three pieces to this. You mentioned the charge. I just wanted to see if you would also provide a decision either now or later on the name and size.
I think, yes, but it seems to me that I thought I read that it seemed that both your committee and Westford Climate Action were in agreement on a name as change for Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee. And if that's true, then I think that's a really easy decision to make. And then in terms of numbers, yes, I think we can come back with a recommendation of, you know, how big the committee should be. Anita?
Yeah, related to numbers, I know that in one of the documents, someone had proposed like 9, but then there was a list of town staff and potential like committee members who should be involved. And I guess in sort of these offline conversations, coming back with a proposal of to what degree or like in what capacity those different positions should be involved would be really helpful, I think, too, if you can.
Yep. We can look at that too. All right. I don't see any comments from the audience. And so if there are no further comments from the board, Tom and I will undertake our task and we'll bring it back at our next meeting. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, the Energy Committee. Thank you, Westford Climate Action, for all your hard work on this. Really appreciate it. Okay. We're at our 7:45 p.m. item, which is a joint meeting with the 35 Town Farm Task Force to hear their recommendation and consider award of contract for the disposition of 35 Town Farm Road. And I believe that Ellen Hardy is going to present the committee's recommendation.
This is Ellen Hardy.
Hi, Ellen.
Good. May I have the floor, Madam Chairman?
You may.
Thank you so much. To be before the Select Board tonight to present the recommendation of the 35 Town Farm Task Force is one of the greatest honors I can imagine. In April 2019, you asked 12 residents to serve on the 35 Town Farm Road Task Force, and you gave them a Herculean assignment, and they accepted it. Over the ensuing 21 months, this determined, capable, and dedicated group has worked without ever wavering to smooth out every bump in the roadway leading to a plan to save the historic Town Farm building. In the summer of 2019, as we began, the task force unanimously agreed with a suggestion from the Council on Aging that the Town Farm property should become truly affordable senior housing and the new home of the Westford Food Pantry. We met with 2 developers who were interested, and your board approved that use of the building in November of 2019. By May of 2020, this task force had smoothed out every bump in the senior housing development road. 1, we identified the historic elements in both the 1837 and the 1901 buildings that a developer must retain. We ensured a perpetual easement across the property for the fire department and the public to have access to the existing parking behind the Rogers Fire Station. We were able to increase the lot size from 1/4 acre to over 1 acre. We identified a way to provide an adequate septic system for the housing. And thanks to the water department, they found a new location at the 60 Forge Village Road for a new fire training facility, so the outdated training facility that's now at 35 Town Farm Road can come down. And the task force also set an asking price for the Town Farm property that will cover up to 65% of the cost of the new training facility on Forge Village Road. The vote on each of these decisions was unanimous. And in the summer of 2020, the task force's completed homework was handed to Assistant Town Manager Eric Heidemann, who worked with the Town Task Force Vice Chair Roberta McGuire to craft a request for proposals for developers of the housing. Responses to the RFP were due back days before Christmas 2020, and a proposal from Choice, the Chelmsford Affordable Housing nonprofit led by David Hedison, was then carefully reviewed and evaluated by a 5-member review committee. The assistant town manager, Roberta McGuire, our vice chair, 2 other task force members, and a member of the Westford Finance Committee. That review found the Choice proposal to meet or exceed every bar set by the task force and the RFP. The review committee voted unanimously to recommend Choice as the developer. Meeting last Wednesday, January 20th, with 11 of our 12 members there, the 35 Town Farm Task Force also voted unanimously to recommend that the select board tonight choose Choice as its development partners. And because the task force was charged by your board in November of 2019, quote, to continue to work with stakeholders through the RFP process and the renovations to transform the town farm to affordable senior housing and a new home for the food pantry, end quote. Please note tonight that all 12 members are ready to do just that in the coming months and years. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Ellen. Actually, okay. Do we have questions or comments from the board? Scott?
So, again, thanks to this task force for really, managing a lot of. It seems like you take one step forward, 2 steps back sometimes, but we did what I think was probably. It actually been to find a plan to actually do this, save the building and create the housing. And as a member of the task force, as a member of the review committee for the proposal, I think we all are familiar with Choice. They built the veterans housing on the sort of Carlisle, Acton, Westford border. They've built the Wish project up on Tadmark, and so they've proven they can deliver these projects with the quality that we expect. So I think it's a good choice. They did meet the criteria. I guess I would like to hear from the senior center, if Jennifer is there, or the food pantry, to make sure that they agree that that this is what they're happy with. But in my opinion, we've got a solid plan with a solid partner here.
Okay, so Jennifer is out there, and she did have her hand raised, but then she took it down just now. But Jennifer, do you want to comment or about this and offer any response?
Yes, I'm very comfortable with the decision that's being recommended by the 35 Town Farm Task Force. We work very closely with Choice already. And, I think it's very exciting. And again, I feel very comfortable with the selection. And, David Hedison has an excellent reputation with DHCD and MHP. So we're just very pleased, very excited.
Okay, Tom?
This is just really exciting. What an exciting approach, and accomplishes so many missions that we have here in town. I don't mean to jump to kind of what the roadmap will look like from here, just for the members of the public. I know some of it was covered in the documents, but I am interested just in someone wants to lay out kind of the steps from here to breaking ground and completion, and then also sort of what the roadmap forward looks like for the fire training piece of this too.
Eric or David, I don't know if David wants to lay out sort of the process for the construction on 35 Town Farm Road, if Eric wants to do the fire tower part of it, or if somebody from our fire department is out there and can answer that. So David or Eric, which one of you would like to first respond?
David, go right ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you. It's truly a pleasure to be here tonight, and it is really exciting. I'm full of smiles. So I'm looking forward to the board taking this up this evening. So as far as I stated in the meeting with 35 Town Farm, with the committee, we need to go deeper. We want to bring together the committee, the food pantry, historic, stakeholders, Jennifer. I mean, we really want to take a deeper dive because we have a lot more work to do as far as before we bring this to any kind of zoning, before we bring this to community preservation. We need to get together with the community, with the stakeholders to really define the space even further. Because it was an RFP, there are still more questions we want answered. And one of the things as simple as even the name of this project, we specifically left it very bland because we want the name to come from the community. It shouldn't be coming from me or the team that I'm part of. So, you know, Tom, I would love to say that if it gets awarded tonight, I can give you a 12-month plan and say we will have a groundbreaking within 12 months. What will happen is we will work on actually defining the project or the plan much more, engaging architect and engineers and the community. We will then look to zoning, and zoning meetings or public hearings could take more than one, more than two, and some time. I'm hoping that we're going to have a project ready to go within the next 24 months, but realistically, this could be, and I've always been direct, a project like this, from when you think about it, when it's a glimmer in your eye to when you're walking through the door, it's a 3 to 5 year, it's a 3 to 5 year project. So more to come.
Best get started.
Yes. And I think it's contingent on some CPC funding, if I read correctly. So the town will have a chance to vote on this again, express their support on this.
Right. Okay. Eric, the second part of Tom's question had to do with the fire tower.
Yeah, I think Jody actually wanted to answer that.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Jody.
Thank you. So first of all, I just want to say what a fantastic result in committee. Amazing. Eric and all the hours he's put in, the water department, the firefighters, David. I mean, really just a wonderful project. And but I know people are wondering about the fire training facility. So I've been continuing to work on that with engineering, and I probably neglected to mention them, but we did get the number down. I think we're a little over 200,000 off right now. I still have ideas on how to hopefully close that gap. And there are contingencies in our plan that are significant, but I think there is some work that we can do in the town to try to bring this cost down. So I'm certain by the time we need to wrap this up that we will be close. And so anyway, we're committed to that, but thank you.
Great. Like everybody else, I'm really excited about this project. And I thank everybody who has worked to bring this to fruition and to bring it forward to us tonight. I know it hasn't always been a smooth project and a smooth road, and I know it's had its bumps along the way, but I really think it's indicative of what can happen and what people can do when they set their minds to something, and when everybody from all different perspectives work together towards a common goal. So my hat's off to all of you who have been involved in this. This is really exciting. And even though it may still be 3 to 5 years down the road, David, it's still really exciting. So I think what you need from us tonight is a vote to approve or accept the proposal. And then I think what would be helpful after that, David, is I know you know, in response to Tom, you sort of set out all these things that, you know, you still need to sort of follow up on and happen. I think what would be helpful is if, you know, and I'll leave it to you to sort of set a timeline for yourself when you can do this, but to provide for the board sort of an outline of the steps that need to be taken, okay? You know, we need to go to community preservation, we need to go to zoning, we need to do this, we want to have a community meeting to talk about, you know, what's needed, the name of it, et cetera. And I think it would be really helpful for the board and also for the community to have that so that we can all start to move together and to move this project towards fruition. So I think that would be a homework task I would ask for you to do.
Yes.
Okay. Any other, oh, I see, hang on a minute. I thought, Lynn Cohen, do you have a question? Or was that from before?
Lynn's saying no.
Okay. There she is. And I know that I already reached out, even though Emily Teller's hand is still up, she told me she does not have a question, and she just took it down. Jody? Jody?
Sorry. So first of all, I just want to say Roberta McGuire, she just a little shout out. She was on the phone with Eric maybe 3 times a day for the past year or so. So Roberta, thank you so much for all your perseverance too. But so what we're looking for really is a motion to award the solicitation process and authorize the town to negotiate a purchase and sale.
Scott?
Right, so I also wanted to mention that, you know, probably 12, 15 years ago now, I joined the Affordable Housing Committee with Andrea. And there were people there, Carl Lyman, Anino, Mary Truby, who just were adamant we had to have truly affordable housing in Westford. And a lot of our projects have been mixes of market rate, whether 80% or 60%. And this one is truly, truly affordable. So this is, to me, it's a realization of, you know, 12 plus years of trying to meet the dream of people who I respected and some of who are, you know, no longer with us. So thank you, David, and the task force for making this happen. And with that, I would make the motion that we approve the choice response to our RFP and trust, I guess, Jody with negotiations to close the deal.
Is there a second? Okay. I don't see any further discussion and I don't see any further questions or comments from the audience. So all those in favor, Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Scott?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so very much. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right. Now we're at our 8 p.m. item, which is a joint meeting with the 12 North Main Street Task Force to hear their recommendations and consider award of a contract for the disposition of 12 North Main Street. Hey, we are on a roll tonight.
I'm impressed.
Jane is Jane Hughes out there?
I am.
Yes.
Okay, you're up, Jane.
Great. I don't have as impressive a speech prepared for this. I'm just very excited to be able to tell you after what we all know has been a very, very long time. We were finally able to coax Urban Design and Development, the owners of the 10 North Main Street property, to formally respond to the RFP that we sent out. And for those of you who have had a chance to review their response, I think it was impressive. There's some ambiguity to it, but we're pretty excited about being able to take next steps. We have a lot of complications, as you're all aware. I've already been able to take some time to speak with our state reps about the various opportunities for cleanup, et cetera, and so on. But we would like to offer, our time here for you to ask us any questions. We did meet, and it is our recommendation, as we indicated in our brief, that we award the contract and begin the negotiations to have them acquire the property. So
I just want to add, since I am the board's representative there, to that committee, while there are still questions and many questions left from as a result of this proposal, it is actually the first, real proposal that we received that has actually some potential and promise moving ahead to redevelop the property. And it bears, in my opinion, I think that, while we're still far from any, definitive project there, there's a lot to be talked about. And I think that it behooves us to engage with the proponent in a conversation to see if we really can finally do something and develop this property and make it, functional again, and rejuvenate the neighborhood in that area. So I fully support that we should reach out and start negotiations with these folks as well. And Eric, I don't know if Eric's been doing yeoman work on 35 Town Farm Road and 12 North Main Street. I don't know if you want to add anything, Eric, to that or to what Jane said.
No, you summed it up very well, Andrea. I think, like you said, given the only proposal that we received, this has actually been the best one with the most thought and consideration going into it. So I think it's got a lot of potential for us.
Mark?
Yeah, just this is fantastic. I just have one question, and that's related to, over the years, we've kind of talked about mixed use, and whether it be commercial and retail for the particular area. And I didn't really see much of that in the proposal. So just wanted some color behind, has it been determined that there's really, the best value to the purchaser is really all around residential, mainly residential, and there's really not much of an opportunity for whether it be retail or other commercial?
Jane, do you want to answer that?
Sure. I think that there's a lot of open-endedness to their proposal. I think it was important to urban design and development to make you aware of their qualifications. They're not really done yet. A lot of this has to do with what DEP tells us, what kinds of cleanup needs to happen. They've had a lot of brainstorming even about maybe even bringing some veterans housing in, returning the stream front to the public, for instance. They're really very much about developing community. And they've talked about some think space. They've talked about a lot of different things, and they just really haven't had an opportunity until they can more properly assess the site for septic use, et cetera, and so on. So theirs is not as solid a proposal as you are seeing, for instance, with 35 Town Farm, because theirs is continuing to evolve with lots of lots of things still happening. There was in the proposal some commercial, I forget how they defined it, but there was some small component of commercial. I think they identified the need for 60 residential units. And I know that the open land that they have would be able to manage those units with regard to septic, et cetera, and so on. But they need to deal with parking and all of those other things, and being so close to the water, they have to manage all of those things with approval from so many different boards. So I know they're anxious to continue to design and work with the town and find out just what they can and can't do, because that's not really clear to them within our mill overlay district, what they can do and can't do, and what they can build back and can't build back, and what they can add. So it really is mostly about their saying, they are ready to go. They're ready to work hard at this. They're looking forward to working with the town, but they really have so many questions that they need answered in order to give us the kinds of answers that we can make decisions on. I hope that answers your question, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
Eric?
I just wanted to add also that we're still working to finalize the limited phase 2 environmental site assessment, which was approved by a grant and funded by a grant. We hope to have that done this month, and that information will be both helpful to the town and the proposer to further identify the environmental issues at the site. So we're hoping that helps the situation progress even further along.
Great. Okay. All right, so I guess again, Jody, is it a motion to enter into negotiations similar to the one we made with respect to 35 Town Farm Road?
Yes, we're recommending that you award the solicitation process for the disposition of 12 North Main to Urban Design Development Corporation and authorize the town manager's office to begin purchase and sale negotiations. So.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I don't see any questions or comments from the audience, so all those in favor, Tom?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye. Again, it's been a long road for sure with this committee. 3 RFPs to get to this point. Thank you to Jane, to your entire committee, Eric, for really sticking with this and persevering in the face of some pretty substantial odds. So thank you very much.
We're all excited. Thank you.
All right. We are at our where are we? We are at our 8:30 p.m. item, which is a community update on the COVID-19 situation and impacts on town operation during this period. So Jody,
I think you missed one. I think you missed one, Andrea. 8:15.
Oh, I did. I knew I was missing one. I was much too far ahead.
This is my only role here, is to keep you honest.
And you know what? I really appreciate it. Okay.
My pleasure.
I'm sorry. We have to go back to evaluate the town department's interest and consider next steps following the receipt of notice of intent to remove from Chapter 61B, classification and taxation of recreational land, and sell the property owned by Westford Riding Academy Trust located at 22 Griffin Road. That's a long way of saying that we've received notice from the owners of 22 Griffin Road that they want to sell their property and take it out of Chapter 61B. So, Jeff, you have appeared on my screen. So would you like to start us off?
Sure. Hi, Andrea. Jeff Morissette. I'm your Director of Land Use Management, and I'll take your cue and keep this as short as possible since you didn't want me to talk, which I'm fine with. So as you mentioned, we're here tonight regarding 22 Griffin Road and the notice of intent to take this property out of Chapter 61 recreational use, such that the property could be sold and developed as a residential subdivision. And so, as you mentioned, the town has a right of first refusal. And so they have normally 120 days to figure out if they want to exercise that right of first refusal or not. However, right now, due to the governor's orders, that clock has not yet started. So the board has the luxury of a little more time. However, we think it's in everyone's best interest if this board can reach a decision as soon as you conveniently can. And so we've compiled a number of comments from various boards, departments, some abutters, and the public at large. We've included them in your packet tonight for your consideration. And additionally, the planning board recently discussed this matter. They did not choose to make a specific recommendation as to whether or not to exercise your right of refusal or not. However, they did thought that it was worthwhile for this board to consider two particular comments, those from Director of Public Works, Steve Cronin, as well as noting the parcel's history, that it had previously been identified as the potential site for a cell tower. And so after you have review of the information in your packet and any additional comments tonight, we're asking the select board to do one of three things. Either one, decide that you have enough information to make an informed decision, that you want to actually exercise your right of first refusal and recommend that the town purchase the property, or two, that you have enough information to decide that you don't want to exercise your right of first refusal, or three, if you find that you need additional information to make an informed decision, let us know what that is so we can gather that information and bring it back to the board for consideration. And I do know that at least Director of Public Works Steve Cronin should be here tonight in case you have any specific questions about his memorandum. There may be some additional folks in the audience as well.
Right, so I would like to hear from Steve. I know we have his memorandum, but also Steve, if not just for us, but also for the public, if you could also let us know what the water department is thinking and its interest in this parcel of land.
Sure, thank you, Andrea. Steve Cronin, Director of Public Works. So the Board of Water Commissioners have an interest in 22 Griffin Road as both a potential new source site or a potential water storage tank site. As you know, the town of Westford is basically exists in two different watersheds. We have the Merrimack River watershed and then the Suasco watershed. Currently, all of our sources, as well as our storage tanks and treatment plants, are in the Merrimack River watershed. Through our master planning process, we've identified basically that with current consumption projections as well as town growth, we have enough existing capacity to service the town through roughly 2038. So that being said, we are looking at potential new water sources as well as system expansion. So we have identified the need to probably develop new sources in the Suasco River watershed to sort of diversify our water supply. So the commissioners would like to look at the potential to do a test well investigation on this property to see if there's any potential for a new source over there. That being said, that could cost anywhere from $15,000 to $18,000. So as well as require approval from the existing property owners to allow us to do that test. We did not budget that in our current budget, so there are some challenges there to come up with funding to do that testing. There is some potential to do that through a reserve fund transfer, but there are quite a few moving parts right here that we're going to have to overcome in order to do this investigation for sure.
And if you were to undertake the investigation, how long a process are we talking about? How long will it take to do this?
Well, the investigation itself should take anywhere from 4 to 5 days. It's really securing the funding in order to do that and getting access permission from the existing property owners.
Okay. Okay. Questions or comments from the, Mark?
Yeah, so Steve, thanks. The question on sort of confused by the $15,000 to $18,000 and why you would need a reserve fund transfer. Wouldn't that come out of the water department?
It would come out of the water department. It's whether or not we have the ability in our existing operating budget to absorb that $15,000 to $18,000. It's not an expense that we planned for this year. Based on our current projections, we think that we could absorb that in our existing operating budget, but we want to be certain before we go ahead and undertake that expense.
And couldn't you, if it couldn't be absorbed, can't you just do a retained earnings transfer within the water department as opposed to getting a reserve fund transfer? Or is that not legal?
Jody is waving her hand at you, so I think she might answer that question.
I just want to remind the board that several years ago now, I don't remember exactly, we formed a water department reserve fund that has $250,000 in it, but they need select board I don't remember if it's Finance Committee too, Steve, but that's what he's referring to is the Water
Gotcha.
Department Reserve Fund.
Thank you.
Not,
Thank you.
not
Thank you.
finance.
Not FinCom. Yeah, gotcha.
Yes,
Thank you.
it is finance committee approval. Yep.
Okay, that answers that. Anita?
Hi. I have, thanks Steve and Jeff for coming in. I'm just so impressed with all the town staff who are here tonight. There's just so many people. So thank you to everyone for being here tonight. I have a question, Steve, because this is such like a new area for me, like water department and water supply. And so if this well test is conducted and it's positive, like in your favor of potentially like tapping into the water source here and like building out your water distribution system, can you give me a high level overview of like what the steps would be to kind of, and if the town does want to obtain this land, like estimates for like what the steps would be? Are we talking like huge costs here that would eventually come down the pike in a few years? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking some pretty significant costs. I mean, obviously it's the acquisition of the property first and foremost, but you have the permitting of the well, the construction of the well, all the testing that goes along with it. So, we haven't even really begun to compile those costs. We're really just looking to see if it's a viable source to begin with. We really figure that you would need a source that can produce at least 500 gallons a minute for it to be really worthwhile in terms of development. Anything less than that really financially doesn't make sense for the department.
Okay, thanks.
Scott and then Tom.
I think if you follow the news at all in the world, we've got water shortages every place: California, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia. And when the shortage occurs, you're stuck. You have to plan for this. And I think it's knowing we from the energy committee to look at things on the road, 20 years for energy use. I think we need the same kind of thought process for water supply, and we need to at least pursue the chance that this might actually be a long-term solution for when we're all happily retired from our current spots.
Tom?
I would definitely support the water department in investigating this further if that's one of the choices that we have tonight. Jeff, I think you've already said it, but no other uses have come forward from various town agencies aside from the water department for this piece of property.
So I know the fire department noted that there was at least some strategic benefit, and I think their concerns could be addressed even if it was residentially developed, because they would have an opportunity through that permitting process to allow for extension of the water system, which I think Steve acknowledged would be beneficial both for water quality and or fire protection purposes. So whether or not the town acquires it, I think fire department's concerns would be addressed. There were some other comments that may not have been in writing, but it might have been discussed at other boards, for other municipal uses, whether community garden or dog park. But the ones that submitted formal comments, I'd say Mr. Cronin's comments I thought were the most on point. In fire department, their concerns were also on point, but that doesn't necessarily require the town to purchase it. There were other comments received from abutters concerning cell towers, some for and some against.
Thanks.
Mark?
Yeah, so my last question on this, given I believe we're still, Jeff, you said in the suspension of the 90 or 20-day process. So do we have a sense of whether the landowner will allow us to go on and do the testing before we actually have to make a commitment?
So one of the things that I would like to do is to reach out to council, because there are some provisions that do allow for soil testing and or water testing. But I think that's normally not for these specific purposes, for siting a municipal well. So we could first see what we might legally be allowed to do, but then we can also just contact the property owner and see if they would simply give permission, and we could bypass that whole process. So we're happy to participate in that effort.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, Andrea, that's kind of where I am at this point in time, is if we're not in a rush to make the commitment, I'd like to at least be able to get Steve an answer before we make that choice.
I'm in that that's where I am as well. And I see other members' heads nodding, and I think we're all in the same place, which is, you know, since we have the luxury of some time here, we should take advantage of it and allow Steve and the water department to do its investigation. I know that Paul Fassbender is out there, and he did submit some comments, some lengthy comments to us. So Paul, if you unmute yourself.
Okay, thanks, Andrea. First of all, I'm here to offer my recommendation that the town would seriously consider purchasing the parcel, but not just for one reason, such as a potential cell tower site, but for other potential community-oriented uses for the property. Since I have a background in the cell tower area, I'll address that one first. As most of you probably know, I got involved in about 2006 when Assistant Town Manager Norman Kamalo asked me if I'd take a quick look at the town zoning bylaw on cell towers and see if there were any changes that were needed. That little quick look turned into a 5-year project, resulting in several modifications of the bylaw approved by town meeting and a total rewrite that was approved coincidentally in 2011, the same year that the Board of Appeals actually approved a tower application at 22 Griffin Road. There was a lot of town activity during those years, a lot of heated discussions, and you can read in the material I sent in some of the highlights that we learned from residents and from carriers and so forth. But what relates really to this property is that at the time, it was the only property in the south end of town that our consultants and peer reviewer believed we could reasonably height a cell tower. That is, maximizing the distances from existing residences and keeping it out of the line of sight for people, which were two of the biggest requirements that residents placed on us when we were looking at revising the bylaw and so forth. So, if the town decides to let the property go for development, we probably lose the ability to use this parcel for that purpose. I should also point out that T-Mobile never actually built the tower that was approved there for reasons of their own. But since that time, the site's basically still been on the table as a site that's been through public hearings and is, if a new application came in, would be a likely source for an applicant to bring forward, or would be a good alternate source. Under the FCC application process, they've established a 150-day shot clock for towns to respond to applications. All of our applications in the past, we've asked for many extensions, and most of the processes where we've tried to find an alternate site have taken 1 to 2 years to complete. And as you undoubtedly know, many of them have been very contentious, and the last of them is still in litigation between the abutters and the tower company, trying to still block the situation. So finding an alternate site, if this one goes off the table, could be a challenge and leaves us with two unpleasant choices. One is we can do nothing and wait for an application to come in and have to respond within the 150-day shot clock and any extensions we're likely to get. So we're really under the gun to find an alternate site. Or we can start the process before an application comes in and try and identify alternate sites. Both of these require town resources that you should factor in if you make the decision to let this property go for development. So the idea actually was formalized in 2011 in addition to the site approval. As Jeff and Aaron found in the files, the town had completed a study with Isotrope, our peer reviewer, and the title of that is in my packet, the Evaluation of Potential Sites for Future Wireless Facilities in Westford, Massachusetts. We actually developed a That's right.
Paul, I'm going to sort of stop you there. I know that you've done that, but I think, sort of we are all understanding the point that we should think very carefully before we let this parcel go because of the potential cell tower location there.
And since we have time, we can always talk about it some other time. Let me just conclude by some observations. Along with the Healthy Westford people, I noticed that this parcel is really interesting because it has frontage on both Old Lower Road and Griffin Road. So one good use that I've heard is people have talked about, as Jeff mentioned, community garden, dog park, other things that could be sort of walk-in type community resources for people in those areas. And as you probably know, there's been a lot of residential development along both Griffin Road and Old Lower Road in terms of, sort of circle roads going off them and so forth. So I think this would be an ideal place to look for a number of uses along those lines. Another one I haven't heard mentioned is, some sort of a decorative garden, something like a garden club might put together and maintain and so forth, similar to what Acton did with the Acton Arboretum and so forth, and providing a series of different trails. So there's a whole lot of community type stuff that could go in that area. And I would hope that residents in the neighborhoods along those two roads would get together and come up with some alternatives that maybe town staff and town boards haven't brought forward. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. I'm not seeing any other comments from anyone. I think the sense I'm getting from the board is that we're not going to make a decision tonight, except that we'd like the opportunity, since we have time, for the water department to be able to explore whether or not this is a potential well site. That doesn't mean, even if it turns out that it isn't, given what we've heard from the neighborhood and from Paul tonight and some other comments, that we still may not consider purchasing this property for the town. But I think for now, one of the key points for the board to make a decision is to find out whether or not this would be an appropriate site for a well or a storage tank. So I think with that, I guess, Jody and Steve, if what you need is a transfer from, I guess, the water department's reserve fund, and there's, I believe you said $200,000 in that fund right now. If that's something you need, then were you motioning to me, Mark? Okay. Anyway, if you need select board approval, then let's put it on one of our future agendas. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay.
Yeah, I was just trying to tell you it's more than 200.
Okay. Jody?
Yeah, I think we could put it on 2/9 because that is jointly posted for the FinCom and the select board.
Great. If we could do that, that would be great. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, now we're at our 8:30 item, which is an update on the COVID-19 situation and impact on town operations. And I think Jody is going to give us just a brief update on the 2021 financials and including school financials. So.
Yes, thank you. So just briefly, our revenues are off. That we've talked about it. Mostly hotel and restaurant are down, but there's certainly other things that are off too. And so Dan and I are tracking this every day. And at this point, I think we've mentioned, and we still have a deficit just under 300,000 for 21. We are hearing that there may be some unrestricted state aid coming our way. I don't think it'll close the entire gap. There's a couple areas we're also watching, which is fire overtime and also solid waste, which continues to cost a lot. So at this point, I think, we're keeping a close eye. We are concerned with the amount of free cash that is generated at the end of the year, because obviously we use that for capital. One of the things I added to your packet is closeouts. We've been tracking closeouts very diligently here, and we've been taking a lot of measures to have closeouts. And we did give you a list by town department of what we're expecting. Most of those are positions we haven't filled yet. I would like to fill them depending on what happens next year. But where we've been able to, assistant accountant, planner, assistant planner, some other building positions, we've been holding off just to try to have some money left at the end to turn back. So we're here to answer any questions you have, but that's just a brief update.
Anybody have any questions? Mark?
Sorry, I couldn't find the my mouse. On the expenditures page, I'm just a little confused by the third column. So I see the budget and the projection. Tell me what is that third column meant to represent? I'm having trouble with the math.
Are you talking about on the financial update?
Yep, on the second page that says expenditures. For example, the town personnel services.
Yeah,
The 554 that.
Right. That's what we're expecting to close out at the end of the year. That's money we are not going to be spending in the town side.
Right, but if I look at the budget and the projection, is that supposed to be the differential between the two?
It is the amount that we are planning not to spend. Yeah. Yes.
So, okay, but so the 554 isn't the differential between column 1 and column 2.
Dan, is that the differential?
No, it's pulling from a spreadsheet. Let me
Okay.
check that quickly. But he's
I
right.
guess
The
what I
554 number is accurate. That's the number we're going with as a projected closeout. So there were some adjustments we made at town meeting that I don't think pulled into this. We had a 173,000 or so decrease to the budget. So
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So the 554 is right, but the column 1 and 2, one of those isn't correct.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, fair enough. You don't need to pull it up. I just wanted to make sure I understood it.
I think the point is the town is hoping to turn back at the end of the year $614,000. Okay.
Yep.
Not spend it. That's what we're planning. The schools said, I believe last week, they cannot commit to not spending money at this point. They're just not sure. So we're not accounting for that. Of course, Neshoba does not turn back any funding. So, and then at the bottom of the sheet, we listed some town and school debt service, health insurance that we're hoping to turn back. So the total closeouts at the end of the year, meaning money we don't plan to spend that was budgeted, would be 736, and that will change, but that's what we're attempting to do. So I just wanted you to know that, and we will continue to work on this. But I'm not shuddering about 21. We'll continue to track it, but I'm not fearful. Let's put it that way.
Great.
There's been a lot of work. There's been a lot of work to get this point. So yeah.
Tom?
Yeah, I was going to say, really appreciate the hard work. I know on a budget this size, scrambling to try to make sure we're ahead of things is really important. It's a job well done. I just wanted, for someone who's not following this all the time in the public, I guess the summary is we do expect a shortfall relative to what we'd expected, but we expect to turn back some funding too. And so no one should be particularly concerned, but it is a concerning time. But it looks like by being frugal and by being ahead of it, we'll turn back enough to reasonably deal with the deficit.
Yes, and things are changing still all the time. I mean, we're hearing FEMA is going to cover certain things at 100% now. Again, we don't have the final state aid number. So I think, you know, we're going to get through this, but it has taken some belt tightening.
Right. I don't think, Tom, to follow up, and what Jody's saying, I don't think we have to jump off the bridge. I think, you know, we, kudos to Jody and Dan, and again, Ingrid and Bill on the school side for really following this and tracking this closely, literally on a day-to-day basis. And I think with all of us, you know, working together and tightening our belts and looking at every line item, we are going to get through both this year and, you know, looking ahead to fiscal year 2022, which, you know, doesn't, you know, there's not a whole lot of money there, obviously, but I think that we'll be able to also, again, working together to put together a budget that funds all of the town's departments and the schools appropriately, if not, you know, if not to the ideal, at least shows no, we don't lose anything. At the end of the day. I know I said this earlier, but for anybody who wasn't watching, I just want to reiterate that Jody will be presenting the town budget on February 9th. It is a joint meeting with the FinCom, and I encourage everybody and all of our residents to tune in and to watch. It's the first step in the entire budget process that leads to town meeting on June 12th, either approving or not approving the budget. So stay informed and tune in on February 9th.
And Andrea, just to clarify, I am posting for school committee too, so all three boards will be on that night.
Okay, great. I didn't know if you were posting for school committee or not, so I apologize for leaving them out. All right. 8:45 p.m. item, old and new business. Anybody have anything for old and new business? Okay. Our 8:50 item, which is a consent agenda, and we have a request to approve the following. A banner request for the Westford Boy Scouts of America Troop 437 Spring Bike and Sports Sale fundraiser. The dates are Saturday, April 25th, 2021 to Tuesday, May 4th, 2021 in front of the First Parish Church. And then a town common request for the Westford Boy Scouts of America Troop 437 Spring Bike and Sports Sale fundraiser on Saturday, May 1st, 2021 from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor, Scott?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Okay. And now we are at our board reports and updates. We have an update from Eric Barber-Mingo and Mamatha Jagannathan, who are the co-chairs of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee on the progress of the committee's work to date. So Eric, if you can unmute the two of them and they'll unmute themselves, we can hear from them.
Good evening, everyone.
There's Eric.
I believe Mamta is on the line as well.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
We can hear you.
Thank you. I don't know why my video is not working. Hold on, let me just put my video on. I hope so it works.
Up there you are.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to present this update on behalf of Eric and the DEI committee here. And Eric and Anita can chime in as we go through our update. I first want to thank the Town Select Board for charging this committee to lead this effort in the town. As you all know that there's so much going on around this diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this is really an appropriate time for us to do this. and appreciate everybody on the committee to be supportive to take this action. Next slide, please. The agenda for us to present today was to go through the charter that has already been laid out from the town committee, town select board for all of us. We're just going to follow that now until we see that we need to change anything in the charter. So there's no change on that. Progress, I'm going to walk you through what's been progressed so far since the committee has been formed. I want to share some of the results, survey results that the committee had done and the topics that came up from the results, which led into the formation of a subcommittees and how a committee structure has been set up, and what the subcommittees and the DEI committee will be doing going forward as next steps. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, the charter has not changed. We continue to follow the charter that the select board has charged us to do with, and we are very happy to continue doing this for the town and the community here. Next slide, please. So what have we done so far? Since the committee has been formed and since the town select board selected all the 22 people to take charge of this committee, we had our first meeting on November 4th, led by Anita and Ming, wonderfully managed by them. And during that meeting, it was decided that we will start forming co-chairs and chairs and then subcommittees based on what we have from our results. So November 4th was the first meeting where all the committees members shared who they are, what their passion is, and what their interests are. It was very inspiring and very interesting to listen everybody's interest in this particular topic for the town. Following that, we decided to have another meeting in 2 weeks to keep this moving faster. And in the second meeting, we chose the officers. Eric as a co-chair and me as a co-chair of the committee. We chose the officers so that we can take lead and take advice from Anita and Ming as we proceed with this. Following in November, oh, the dates are wrong. Sorry, my bad. November 9th was the election of officers. November 18th, sorry, I feel so bad about that.
I think actually it goes from November 18th to December 9th. December 9th is.
You're right. You're right. You're right. Sorry about that. Okay, so moving on, December 9th, we went through our survey results that were there. I'll go through the slides and show it to you. And then we started creating a subcommittees based on the survey, categorizing all of the interest into 3 subcommittees so that people can focus on all of them. And we didn't want to leave any of the survey results out in the subcommittee. We wanted to make sure everything is covered. And then January 13th, of course, from December to January, there was Christmas and other holidays, so we didn't have a meeting. So the 2021 first meeting we had was on January 13th, when the whole subcommittee, the teams who wanted to join those subcommittees and the co-chairs for the subcommittees were all formed. We do have our next meeting tomorrow. I didn't put that on the calendar, but we will have more updates in future for you to see what's progress is happening. Next slide. So there was a survey that was conducted with all the committee members to understand what their interests are in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm not going to go through this survey results, but there is a lot of interest in many of these topics that are listed here. Next slide, please. There's more additional topics here. You can go to the next slide as well. I'm just going to go through the next slide. Thank you. So those survey results ended up in creating 3 subcommittees under the DEI committee. So there were topics of interest that were related to school and education. There were topics of interest that were related to community outreach, and there were topics of interest that were related to town policies. There are topics that overlap between these 3 subcommittees, but the team agreed, or DEI committee agreed, we should just have 3 subcommittees rather than having like 4 or 5, which would not be manageable by the team. And each of these interests are something that the committee members would be pursuing as they follow through. Next slide, please. So here's how we are set up as a committee structure. We have Anita and Ming as our advisors, Eric and myself as co-chair, and we have Medha Palnati as a co-chair in training. And then we have 3 secretaries, Corinne, Anjali, and Derek. Derek and Medha are college students who are interested, so we wanted to train them as co-chairs, so they're part of being the co-chairs in training as a secretary as well as a co-chair for the DEI committee. And then we have Seema, who's been on other committees to be the point person who would help the whole committee in managing the documents, uploading it onto town website so that we don't need to bother Samantha all the time. So she stepped us to help across all these subcommittees and DEI committee. So we have somebody to help us out there. And you can see all the rest of the committee members who are interested in each of these subcommittees have enlisted them to follow through. And we do have co-chairs for each of these subcommittees as listed there. We did have one committee who resigned recently due to personal reasons. There was nothing else that was of a concern. So there is one position there out. And Eric and me are thinking that we do have enough members here. So we are considering to discuss if we need to keep that position open to have anybody join this DEI committee. It's out for discussion. I'm not saying we are discussed and we have a decision on it. It's out there for discussion. Next slide, please. All right, what's the committee going to do next? So all this past few weeks, we have formed the teams, we have everybody interested. What are we going to do next? At a higher level, Eric and me will continue to manage and monitor what the subcommittees are doing, following through, and making sure that we get updates regularly to see what actions they've taken, what tasks they've been doing. We'll be discussing we've been having every 2 weeks meetings, so we don't want to overwhelm the committee having like 2 weeks of the DEI committee meeting and subcommittee meeting. So we're going to discuss about how we want to schedule our meetings on a cadence so that we do have the right meetings at the right time. As I said, we'll monitor subcommittee progress. We are also working on figuring out how to get this DEI committee visible to the community. There are many avenues. There's a local newspaper who has reached out to us. We did have Diana Wood in our last meeting offering that Westford CAD can be another option for us to make this committee visible to the community. That's one option. And then we as a committee are figuring out the donation received from Lowell 5 Bank on how to use that and what are the ideas, what ideas we need to generate to use that money appropriately for whether it's for the community or for training for the committee members. We are trying to brainstorm those ideas. What will the subcommittees be doing is they're going to figure out their date and time of the meetings, prioritize their interests, what they have agreed upon, and schedule their meetings going forward. So that's our next steps. And we look forward to continuing this and have the interest and passion that everybody comes with to bring this change into the town here. I'll stop there and I'll see if anybody has any questions.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you to both for being with us tonight. Very much appreciate it and appreciate the report that you've given. Personally, I think that in the 2 months that your committee has been formed and given, that the holidays intervened, I think you guys have really accomplished quite a lot in getting yourselves organized and, getting your tasks in order and prioritizing things. So kudos to both of you and to your entire committee for the work that you've done to date. I don't know if folks have questions for you or thoughts or suggestions. So anybody from the board? Tom and then Anita. You're muted.
A little pop-up right away. I'm on now. Really appreciate this. It's an incredible group. Really incredible group of people participating in this. So thank you for your work so far. And I know that a number of other town agencies and groups have, sort of reached out and in some cases asked for your help and advice on things, which is really terrific. Is there anything you feel like you need from us so far, Martha and Eric, that you don't have to do your work in terms of, I don't know, support, clarification, connection with different town resources?
I think everyone has been very open to us about getting connected to people that we need to. We don't have a definitive list of everyone that we want to talk to at this point, but I have no reason to doubt that everyone on the select board is just there. The one thing that I've really noticed about my short time in town governance is everyone's ready to pick up the phone and give you the answers that you need. So in general, I think we're well positioned to get where we need to just start talking to everyone and making sure that we're a good part of all the town processes.
Tom, thank you so much for that offer. I'm going to take that as a rain check for future. I'll keep it in my back pocket if we need any help. And as Eric said, I'm glad that the town select board committee is so very much supporting this initiative, because this is so important to not only to me or Eric, but I think the whole committee has so much dedication to it. So this is really, really good. And thank you so much again.
Anita?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Mamta, Eric, and Maida have shown a lot of great leadership, energy, and they obviously have a lot of drive. We meet pretty frequently, which is great. Obviously, we have a lot of work to do, and I'm just super excited to be part of this work. And I just wanted to add also that there's been some cross-pollination with the DEI team on the school side. A couple members of the School and Education Subcommittee we're able to kind of listen in. And so we just want to make sure we're not duplicating efforts. And so it's kind of nice to know that we are indeed kind of working together going forward.
Good. Scott?
I just want to say, congratulations, because we gave you a really broad charter, not a lot of direction, and in the space of about 2 months, you've done that survey, you've created an infrastructure, you've created direction. So that's really impressive organization skills in a very short period of time. So thank you. Look forward to seeing more.
We can really thank Mamta for that. She's fantastic with the organization.
It's teamwork. I'll say it's
you need
teamwork.
someone like that, Eric, who keeps you on track. Mark?
Yeah, not to be left out, because you know how I like that. Congratulations to all of you for that. And just on that last comment, if there's a way to replicate the pace and energy that you have, I won't say to our town government, because I don't want to offend Jody and we don't need it here, but certainly to the state, please do all you can to do exactly that kind of pace and energy to what happens down in Boston. And I think we would all be better served.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Go ahead.
Just with my hat on to keep you all in line and to make sure you're all complying with the open meeting law, please make sure that even when there are subcommittees, that you're posting your subcommittee meetings so that we don't get into trouble. So I just wanted to remind you of that. And then a question for you folks. When would you like to come back to us and report to us on your progress? Obviously, we don't need to see you every month or every other month, but what do the two of you think would be an appropriate time frame for you to come back and report to us? And if you haven't thought about that, you can think about that and get back to us.
Why don't we think about it and get back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was going to give an answer. I'm going to step back. We'll discuss and get back.
No. You can go for it. Just as a thought.
I think every quarter would be good. So you could see progress from not only the DEI committee, but also the subcommittees on what they are working on. I also want to just throw this thought there to the select board. If you hear anything besides what Anita, Ming, Eric, or me present to you, and if you feel it didn't come from this channel, but it came from a different channel, likewise, we would like to know what those topics are so that we can be prepared to address them with the committee. I want to make sure, like I said, it's not just me structuring everything. It's the team that I just wean in to work with me to structure it. I want everybody to be on the same page as we structure this. So if you hear anything and you want to share with us, we are open to that as well. We like to hear from you all as well to make sure that this committee functions in the protocol, following everything that they need to do and bring the best out of everybody for the community.
We certainly commit to doing that, and vice versa. If, and particularly with respect to community outreach or publicity, if there is something that we as a board can do or can help you with, if there's something in particular you want publicized, please let us know, and we can certainly do that and help you with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, thank you both very much. Again, really excited about the committee, the work you're doing, the work you've already done. And as Mark said, yeah, if we could capture that energy and enthusiasm and pace and, you know, and reproduce it at, you know, state level, that would be great. But meanwhile, we'll just keep it here in Westford and you folks, you know, moving ahead and moving along. So thank you. And thank you to your committee.
All right, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you all. Thank you
Have a
very
good
much.
night.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
All right. We have a slew of minutes of executive session to approve and release. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not going to read them
Andrea,
all.
sorry, in the role of clerk, but once
Oh my
you have
goodness, I
forgotten.
forgot Tom and Scott. We need to hear about the TSSTF, which is also a group that is
Honestly,
maybe not moving quite as quickly, but has certainly gotten a whole lot done. When I went back over your presentation that you're about to give, Tom, and realized just how much we've done with respect to the safety of our buildings over the last 2 years, it really is pretty incredible, I think, and pretty amazing. So with that introduction, after I flubbed it, I'm going to let you go ahead.
While we're in transition, I want to point out the excellent clerkship that Mark is exhibiting.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to nominate him for the cover of Town Clerk magazine.
I think he should. But, you know, if it wasn't for
Because he
him, I'd be
deserves it.
totally lost.
yeah, in my swan days, I'm really picking up the pace a little bit.
I also want to give a shout out to Anita because it'll come up a little bit here, but as sort of the conduit to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, there's been a bunch of things that have pulled in valuable input from that committee. And Anita's been the one that's sort of seen the opportunity and sort of, you know, we had some SRO stuff going on. She kind of channeled that. And I know she's channeling in her work on the police chief search, sort of the thoughts of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee. So lots of ways for them to add value, but it won't happen unless they're connected to what's going on. I know Anita's been all over that. So thanks, Anita. Scott, should I go ahead and do this a little bit and then you can comment?
Yeah, I think one voice is faster given the hour.
Okay. Can we go to the next slide, Eric? We wanted to come talk to you, one, just to give you a sense of where we are, because we have had to change the pace a little bit. We learned some things that made us need to take a closer look at a couple items. And why now? We did want to sort of surface what some of the things the committee's thinking about and planning to bring forward to the public now, as we're sort of entering this sort of budget discussion time. We know that it's a tight budget process, but just if it was any year, we'd want to share with you what we're seeing while it can be valuable to you. There's a little bit of background here, and I'll just mention there's a document that I won't go over, but it's in the packet for anyone that would like to, sort of a detailed sort of summary of what we've done on the facility side. This committee really started with sort of a strong push on the facility side, identified a bunch of problems through great work through the whole town, the capital planning committee, public safety, schools, made a lot of improvements. So I think parents and community members and teachers can feel much, much better about our ability to respond to an urgent event. There were some big problems that I think are really now largely overcome. I want to call out Paul for his excellent work stewarding a lot of this stuff through. It would be difficult to imagine us being as far along without him. So,
And just so people know, it's Paul Fox, just so people know what we're talking about.
If you're not on a first name basis with Paul Fox, if you can jump to the next slide, Eric. So after this intensive focus on the physical security side, which is still ongoing, there's some pieces of that left, but we'll get those done. We turned to look at sort of what are the biggest threats to the emotional well-being and the safety of students, community members, staff, elders, and a couple important needs in the town emerged because physical safety is not all we're talking about. We're talking about everyone's well-being and what can we do to focus on those things. The three big areas that came up that led to further discussion, which we'll talk about in a minute, are social and emotional well-being among students, families, staff, elders, and community members. We won't go into all the details today, but risk of self-harm is one of the biggest emerging problems. It's been a big problem at the schools for a long time, but it's critical that we give good focus to that. Town-wide, domestic violence, substance abuse, self-harm, many of these things exacerbated in the pandemic need a lot of attention for adults and families. And then there is additional need for us to look at the training and preparedness in our schools and town buildings for an external threat. And we'll talk more about that in just a second. If you can advance one, Eric, that would be great. So again, what are we doing for these different threads? One is we learned along the way that we really have to focus on cultural competence. This is sort of a cousin to diversity, equity, and inclusion. What we learned through our survey work, through the work of some of the consultants, is that different populations in town experience these well-being issues very differently. One of the key findings that came out is that students of color are less likely to have a trusted adult in the school system than white students are. We also learned that stigma around mental health support is very, very different amongst some of the communities that we have in town. So we have to be always keeping that lens in mind as we're talking about problems and solutions and doing this work. So three things we'll talk about in more detail in later slides. One is additional mental health support for younger students in the elementary and middle schools, looking at a way to stitch together all of the different programs in town around wellness with a leader at the town level for community wellness coordinator, and then a close look at what some of the unmet needs are that remain in terms of physical safety. Some of those may include school resource officer expansion. That's what we're really looking at in detail now. Eric, if you can hop one more. So on emotional wellness and support in schools, one of the things that the committee will be bringing forward for community discussion a little bit later in the spring is this idea of getting additional supports along this line in the elementary and the middle schools. We see this rising need at that age level for all kinds of support to provide broader safety net, help the students get some of the coping skills they need. A lot of the students are arriving at WA already in crisis, and some of the good advice that we've gotten and input is that it would be really valuable to us to be giving some resources to that earlier. Also, the trusted adult is important too, and again, this comes in diversity, just being aware that different groups find different people in the school building to be a better trusted adult resource, and we want to be conscious of that. Next one is really looking at a town-wide coordination resource. So there are a number of excellent programs that we have, but the opportunity to stitch those together, provide more community and support, and amplify those, we think could be really valuable, and we're going to bring this idea forward to the community for discussion. This also ties into a lot of the alcohol and substance abuse issues. Part of what this person would do would be to go out and sort of pick up a lot of that work at the state and local level, help be the link between some of the excellent domestic abuse support things that we have in town, make sure that all those resources are fully in the minds of all the first responders that are often the first people that encounter some of these situations. So the idea here is with someone with this role and a mandate to bring all these resources together and really cross-pollinate, we think we're just going to do a much better job. The right resource to the right people at the right time. And the last thing that we're talking about, both of these we felt pretty ready as a committee to take to the community for discussion. Eric, you can go and hop to the next one. The committee was really fairly unanimous that those were important ideas to bring forward and surface and flesh out more in community discussion. One thing that we felt like we had to take a step back on and really look at in more detail is what are the unmet physical safety needs? Now that we've done these infrastructure improvements, what's left for us to make sure that we've got a really safe environment for students and teachers and town workers? And the idea was, should this include more school resource officers? This was one of the recommendations from the one of the consultants that we had. But we found that we really need to take a look and involve the schools at a much deeper level. Okay, we've got these resources in place. What do we really have to focus on? So we've got that group formed. We're actually having a first meeting tomorrow. And thank you for everyone being part of that. Thank you for Maida from the DEI committee for being part of that. Great folks from public safety in town and schools being part of that effort. And we want to really look at, are there some things that we need to add to the program? And would these things require either the addition of SROs or some other resource? Not on the slide, but a couple examples are, it's been really valuable to do sort of tabletop walkthrough exercise, particularly with all the new resources that we have in terms of physical safety and communication. We do those often. Well, I shouldn't say often. We've done those a few times. They've been very valuable. One of the unmet needs could be, should there be a regular program to be doing that, so that we're doing a tabletop walkthrough with teachers on a regular basis on exactly how we should be reacting to urgent situations and how we communicate. Another idea that came up is it's been extremely valuable at the Westford Academy level to have an SRO able to intervene when risky behaviors are observed online, either from students themselves or often friends of students will bring forward risky behavior, use of a weapon, drug paraphernalia in the picture, threats of self-harm. It's been really helpful to have an SRO get involved in those, be part of the team that really, both inside and outside of school, can help address those situations, which occur frighteningly often. And those are happening more and more at the middle school levels. So one question is that an unmet need that we should look at as part of this study? That's the work this group will be doing, the sort of subcommittee group will be doing over the next, I would say 2 or 3 months. And we're hoping to solidify that, bring that back to the committee, and then come with stronger recommendations for discussion, first to the town, get their input in a community forum, and then ultimately back to these boards. Before we talk about next steps, which is on the next slide, Scott, anything that I've missed in this sort of rapid fire that you'd like to, tap on again?
I know. I think you've hit it all. I mean, we've already addressed the one-time costs for the most part that were relatively easy to, I should say easy, but one cost that, from a budget standpoint, it's done behind us. Everything now is going to be, staffing changes. It's going to be ongoing cost, and of course, the budget is not going to allow that right away. So this really requires a lot of, I think, as next steps here, looking at the community broad buy-in. We've had great feedback from the school department, from the school committee, from our senior center, but we haven't heard a lot from the public yet. So these next steps, I think, really help us to nail down recommendations a little bit better.
That's exactly right. So what this committee can expect is the whole DEI committee coming forward, or not DEI, the whole town and school safety task force to come forward and present these ideas after we've had some community input, and just try to give a sense of priority amongst these of what we've seen. Sort of what would we think is highly urgent and we're at risk today for not having in place? What are some things that best practice should lead us to? And sort of lay those out for you so that they can be part of all of our thinking as we're doing planning for the town. And that's the end of that, but I'm happy to answer any questions about what we've seen so far. I guess I will just mention again, these 2 consensus items, again, really to enter your thought, this townwide coordination resource, which some other towns have implemented successfully, and these additional resources at the middle and elementary school to help us get ahead of some of these emotional wellness issues, make sure we can do 100% assessment of kids on those bases, which we're not able to do today.
I think probably the most alarming element of our research was just how stressed our kids are at young age levels. We assumed, I think all of us assumed, that high school is tense because of competitive needs for college and so forth, and adolescence. But it was surprising to see in grades 2, 3, 4, kids already really stressed. That was
That was scary.
That was scary, and we have to, that's looking at these resources, that's where we're targeting those resources, is where we're not really meeting it now.
Okay. Anita? Thank you, Tom and Scott. Anita?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is really helpful. It's a nice overview and nice to kind of see the direction that the task force is going. And I know that you had mentioned the older adults earlier in the presentation, and I think it would be nice to just kind of have it called out here in this sub-bullet next to, school committee, DEI, if it's council on aging or the senior center, just so that it's sort of like this called out reminder. Because I know in general, social isolation has been a huge issue for older adults across the nation, especially during COVID. And so I'm sure that there's a lot that we can kind of gather through those public sessions with that population.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment as well, Anita. As Tom, as you and Scott know, my sort of drumbeat has been throughout this. Please don't forget, it's not just the schools and our students, it's our entire community, and certainly, and I don't know if Jennifer's still on, but certainly our elder community as well, that we also need to look at and focus on their mental health needs as well. So, but this is great, and a lot of good information. Mark?
Yeah, I'm just intrigued on where Scott is going.
I know, he seems to be moving with his computer.
It's awesome. This is watching you. What else do you have to show us, Scott?
Now, see, you embarrassed him, Mark. He's gone offline for a minute.
I know you're surprised by that.
So anyway,
my daughter had to retire to her bedchamber, and I was in the way, so I had to relocate. I thought I was off camera, so always seeing my stairway.
You have a beautiful home.
Yes.
So, Scott and Tom, we look forward to, hearing from you in the next, I know you've said it looks like April, May timeframe, you may have some recommendations. So we look forward to hearing from you. And all right. Okay. Now we're at our minutes for approval, and we have a slew of them of executive session for approval and release. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not going to read them all. What I'm going to say is that for anybody who's interested, they can refer to them as they are listed on our January 26, 2021 agenda. So I will entertain a motion to approve those executive session minutes as listed on our January 26, 21 agenda for release.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And all those in favor, Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Aye. And then we have executive session minutes from September 29th, 2020 and October 13th, 2020, but not for release. Is there a motion to approve but not release those?
So moved.
In a second? Okay. All those in favor, Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Tom?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Jody, town manager's report.
Yes, thank you. So periodically, we update our Town of Westford personnel policies and procedures. And I definitely want to thank Pam Hicks, our HR director, and our personnel advisory committee that have worked very hard on these updates. So what we really updated, some words, we tried to have inclusive language, but mostly this was centered around professional conduct, workplace violence, sexual harassment, protected class harassment, procedures for complaint, update parental leave, and then social media participation and technology acceptable use policies. So you would think we've got a lot going wrong, that we have to do all this, and that's not correct. We just want to update, and we felt we were lacking in certain areas. So that's the primary changes in this. And I'm asking for you to approve the update, knowing if you find something you're not happy with, we can always go go back to the Personnel Advisory Committee and bring it back to you at a later meeting.
Mark?
Yeah, no comments on the document itself. I do have a question of whether this is townwide, meaning including schools.
No, it is not. It is just the town policies. And I will add that it is not real clear cut on union contracts and the people in unions and how that interrelates. Some of these policies we send to them and they sign off on separately, which I'm asking you to approve the social media participation and technology use as separate standing policies tonight too, because we will do that. But no, these do not apply to the schools.
So Andrea, if I can just follow up with that. So I'm not real happy with that. And I understand that it's not your call completely. But we should have one set of policies for all municipal employees, whether you are working for the town, whether you happen to be working for the schools. So how do we get there? Because I think we are, we should not be having one standard for certain kinds of employees and a different standard for another set of employees.
Do the schools, let me just ask a question too, and then Jody, because maybe this will fall into your answer. I'm assuming, but I don't know, do the schools have separate policies for use of social media, technology, parental leave, sexual harassment, et cetera? Do they have their own policies, and have we seen whether or not they match up to what ours are?
So I see Tom shaking his head. So maybe Tom should speak as a former school committee member.
There are those policies. I can't speak to whether there's ever been any sort of synchronization, but the schools and the school's HR side, has those. I see that Gloria's in the audience. I don't know if she's wants to hop in here or is indisposed, but I think it's. I mean, I'm going out. Maybe I should raise my hand, but
go ahead.
Since I'm already talking, to agree with Mark, I think in general it would be good if we can always ask, can we sync this up? Because this has come up a lot of times, and we always see situations where we wish that we had more harmony, either because the schools are doing it in a cool, better way, or the town has thought of something smart. So I don't know how we can make it part of the process to sort of just keep checking in to try to synchronize, but I think that'd be really valuable.
Jody, did you want to respond? And then Gloria is out there, and I think Eric just made her a panelist, so we may be able to hear from her. So Jody?
Yeah, I would say, by charter, it is separate and has always been separate. So they have their own HR department. We have our own HR department. We do the benefits for the schools, the health insurance, and other benefits. But I think it would need to be something that the school committee discussed with the select board, perhaps even a charter change. I'm happy to share all these policies with the school administration. I honestly don't know what all their policies are, but it's always been separate, and by charter, we don't have any authority to have them comply with our recommendations. So.
Anita?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to Pam Hicks, who I see is on the line, and I know it's late, so I appreciate your time and that you're here with us. And I know there was a lot of work that went into this. And I guess I just have a quick question, and this might feel silly, but which charter would we want to propose changing with the school committee to align these policies? Oh, the town charter. Okay, great.
But I think, certainly if the board wanted to have discussed with the school committee at some point, we've discussed combining HR at times, but that never really worked out. So, but it is separate. And so if you want it to be combined, you'd need their approval, I'd say, to do that. So.
You know, I think Mark and Tom, I agree, raise good points. It would be, and I don't know, this may not be true at all, but it would certainly be concerning if the policies, you know, did not, even if they're not absolutely in concert with one another with the same wording, but if for some reason they weren't synchronized or jiving together and, you know, you could do something on the school side and not on the whatever, that would be concerning to me. And I think it should be concerning to everybody. I mean, Tom, I'm sure, you know, like every, you know, school, they have to have the policies that we were talking about. But I think it would, I think we should take a look at it, and we should make sure that everybody is on the same page. And even if right now we have to keep them separate, I still think it's an exercise that we should make sure that even if they're separate, that they should be synchronized and make sure that everybody's on the same page. And I also think, as Jody said, and we've talked about it before about, you know, there's Gloria, that we've talked about it before about trying to combine certain functions of schools and the town. This may be an area where we can work together to do that in the future. So before I get to you, Gloria, I know Anita's had her hand up, and then I'll get to you.
Just a quick comment. Thanks, Gloria, for getting on, even though you probably weren't expecting it. But just, you know, I think it would be really, it's like low hanging fruit, really. I feel like for the school committee to take a look at these HR policies, because Jody, the Personnel Advisory Committee, and Pam went through legal. They've like reviewed this 8 bajillion times. I don't know how long really this process is taking, but I know it's been months, right? Or some, so like, it would really be great for you guys to take a look at it because it's fresh. It's like most up to date. To see if it could be something you'd be willing to adopt.
Gloria, and Anita's right. I have put you on the spot. You did not expect this was coming up tonight, so you know anything you say is obviously subject to future discussion.
Well, that's what I get for lurking on select board meeting.
There you go.
Happy to pop in and say hello. It totally does make sense for me that we would want these policies to be aligned. The schools, of course, do have parallel policies to the ones that you're discussing. I don't know if there's any particularities in terms of our policies that might be different because we are dealing with primarily instructional teaching staff. Obviously, we'd have to kind of line them up and compare, but that's certainly a process we could go through. I think it makes sense. I don't know. We'd have to explore and talk to legal about the possibility of having one set of policies that would get changed and have that automatically domino to all municipal employees, including schools. I don't know if that's problematic from a legal standpoint, unless both boards were always doing the approvals on any updates. So clearly we'd have to figure out how to make the synchronization happen, but it certainly does make sense that we would be having commonalities in our policies, and that there would be a common set of expectations for both town and school employees. That makes sense to me. So we're definitely happy to take a look at it.
Okay, so maybe it seems to me as sort of a future, you know, project, maybe, you know, it might be something that Pam on the town side and your new HR director, whose name has just gone out of my mind for a moment. I had it and now it's gone. But maybe the two of them could get together and work together on this.
Yeah, and Trudy is our new HR coordinator, and obviously we have a policy subcommittee that takes a look at these things. So yeah, we're happy to connect up.
Okay, but meanwhile, going back to what Jody has presented to us tonight, and in order to sort of update our policies, and procedures. Is there, and Jody, actually, before I ask for a motion, one clarification. I know you've told me, I think you've let everybody else know, that you're still working on the policy with respect to committee appointments and volunteers. Is that right?
Yes, so as I mentioned, we've got the personnel policies, and then I'm asking you to also approve the social media participation and the technology appropriate use, because I will issue that to unions with, they have time to comment and give me any issues before they adopt them. Next meeting, hopefully, I'm going to bring you a social media policy and technology appropriate use for you to consider for board members and committees, because I think one of the things we've learned recently is that some of them actually have social media presence, and it's just something to help them to operate within what the town's expectations are. But there was too much to do on that for tonight, so I'm hoping you will approve these three, and hopefully I'll have that to you at your next meeting. If not, it would be the second one in February.
Great, thank you. And thank you for all your hard work on that. So is there a motion to approve these three policies?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor, Scott?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, next.
Thank you. And that did take 5 months, so it was a lot of work. So we do appreciate your support. Secondly, and this does involve the schools too, we missed this in November, I apologize, but we are asking whether you want to consider adopting the minimum wage increase for municipal employees from $12.75 to $13.50. We did give you an analysis, including the schools, of the impact of this, and so.
Comments, questions, a motion? Scott, go ahead.
Well, I say this every year that
I know.
that we need to be competitive with the private sector when we're looking at largely younger employees. So I make a motion that minimum wage as you've outlined.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, Tom?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
No.
Scott?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so I'm announcing the legislative funding we received from Senator Kennedy's office in the amount of $16,802 for public libraries, and no votes needed on that. And then 2 contracts, one with the University of Massachusetts Medical School Center for Healthcare, financing for what we call our SNAP program for the Council on Aging, and Mayor Services for cleaning and redevelopment of the country road well from the Water Department in the amount of $16,490.
Motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Second? Okay, all those in favor, Anita?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Scott?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Aye. Is there a motion to waive reading of correspondence?
So moved twice.
Twice, not just once, but twice. Is there a second?
That's our clerk.
Second. Super clerk.
Okay, we're doing this by raise of hands. Everybody, all in favor?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Well done,
All
Andrea.
right.
This was awesome.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Good night, Westford. Everybody stay safe.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good night.